Welcome to the Conversations podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Alison. If you're all about comfort zones and sticking to the status quo, this is not your show. Each episode features global CXOs, founders, and fearless industry innovators sharing untold stories of challenging norms, breaking barriers, and redefining success and leadership while transforming lives, businesses, and entire industries along the way. These exceptional quote-unquote human beings share in a candid, unfiltered conversation of how adversity became an advantage, how doubt fueled drive, and how the unconventional path led to an unshakable sense of purpose. One unique part of every episode is my brainchild experience of the unword effect, where guests choose 3 words beginning with un that hold deep personal, professional, and leadership significance. These words aren't just a creative twist, they offer a lens into the evolution of a leader. Hey there, thanks for joining us on the Young Conversations podcast. I'm Dr. Alison, and I'm excited to share what's coming up today. You're going to meet a true disruptor and changemaker in the world of disability advocacy and inclusive leadership. Dylan Rafaty is the president and CEO of the North Texas Disability Chamber and a powerful voice for disability rights nationwide. With a personal mission to open doors and expand opportunities for all people with disabilities, Dylan brings heart, vision, and action to everything he does. So what does it take to challenge the unquestioned norms and rebuild them in a way that's more inclusive, equitable, and human-centered? It takes leading with empathy, joining forces across all communities, and committing to real systemic change, not just performative progress. Dylan isn't just an advocate, he's a connector. From corporate social responsibility to workforce development, his work spans education, sports, government, and beyond, and has been recognized with the North Texas Commission's Diversity Champion Award and a spot in D Magazine CEO's Dallas 500 list of 2025. So how do you lead with empathy, disrupt with purpose, and stay grounded in impact? Let's unlock what drives real change. Welcome back to another episode of Unconversations. I'm Dr. AlisonSchmidt, and I am your host. I am so thrilled to welcome Dylan Rafaty to have an unconventional conversation with me. Dylan, thank you so much for joining.
Alison, pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Your topic in regards to what you do within the chamber and your organization is such crucial work, and I'm looking forward to us kind of digging a little deeper in really what you do and how you're really supporting the community, because it's very dear to my heart. You and I had some conversations around that. But just to give our viewers and listeners an opportunity to get to know you better, this is something that I do in my executive coaching practice when I work with CEOs and executives, and I kind of take them through a process to really think about themselves in a different way. Just because we're so used to describing and using words to describe who we are within the same way. And I appreciate you taking this, one, really seriously, 2, sort of having fun with it, and 3, I thought your process and your unwords were so impactful. So if you wouldn't mind starting first with sort of the process that you went through with that, and then going through each one of those words so we can understand what those words really mean to you. And you can talk about from a life perspective, business, or even a combination, however you'd like to go through those.
Well, Alison, I appreciate you taking the whole process step by step. I will say for anyone that is ever interested in going a podcast like this, it is a process, but it is a process well worth it. And it's something that allows you to think critically and really be engaged from the get-go. So the 3 uncommon words, unwords, I kind of give you one of them. There are 3 unwords that I came across were something that best fits my personality. that best fits what I do in day-to-day life, whether it's my personal, social, or professional life. Um, and it also applies to my drive, my commitment, my sacrifices that I typically take in these things. So, knowing all of that, I chose these three unwords to think about what best describes me and my character and my work ethic. So, the first word I want to talk about is uncommon, which I shared earlier moments ago. Uncommon, the reason for that is there's always been a time where, everybody's done the same thing over and over. They're known for the same thing. I've learned over my career, of my almost 15-year career, is noticing the importance of being different. And it's okay to be different. It's okay to be vulnerable and different. And so, knowing all of that, I chose the word uncommon. And it is uncommon for someone like me to post on LinkedIn so passionately, yet so positive and direct, while highlighting struggles or highlighting successes and achievements and recognizing others, praising others, and celebrating the success of others. Um, so that is often uncommon. Um, the next word I chose is something that talks about how we develop relationships. And the relationships, what I mean by that is it oftentimes for many is uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is, in networking settings or in developing relationships or simply going to an event that you had no idea who's in the room and just setting yourself out there. Another prime example, personally, is dating. When you're out in dating life, what does that look like? Is that uncomfortable? Absolutely, it's uncomfortable. Today, we're so exposed to social phones, like I have here, constantly wanting to communicate through a screen, yet we don't have the social skills or the capacity to get uncomfortable. And it's okay to get uncomfortable when you're a speaker. Another great prime example. So those are the kind of things that I think about uncomfortable. And then the last word, Allison, is unstoppable. Um, describes my drive. I have a tenacious attitude, or some people it says Dylan has the tenacity to do things and make progress and build things. But unstoppable also means that sometimes you um, hit a dead end, and when you hit a dead end, you never stop working, but yet put all that pressure on yourself. And sometimes that allows you to realize that you need to take a step back and maybe focus on your mental health and overall well-being. And so knowing all of that, being unstoppable can be also a good and a bad thing. And so having that self-awareness is very, very crucial. So the three words, and like I said, it comes based on my characteristics, my drive, and my commitment to this work. So the three words are uncommon, uncomfortable, and unstoppable.
Dylan, I love your words. And the reason why I love them is hearing you explain them. I also hear some contradictory in them. And I was wondering if you could talk about that from your leadership style. And what I mean by that is uh, the way you described uncommon, and then there's uncomfortable, and then unstoppable. Because you would think some in how we look at unstoppable that there is such a drive, but then you're uncomfortable and then uncommon. So it's interesting to me the dichotomy of all of those and how those really relate to you and how in your leadership do you balance those? And one, if you wouldn't mind answering that, and two, I'd be interested if you may have a story around there to kind of maybe highlight that question.
So I'll give you a so the reason that they come from three different directions, obviously, but that comes from the diversity of experiences that I have. And so I'll give you example for uncommon, and maybe uncomfortable. Uncommon, I would say, a recent post that I did in December of last year. And I did a post to promote our collaboration with the Dallas Mavericks to host the inaugural Disability Inclusion Night. And it was uncommon for me to use LinkedIn, a professional network platform, as a CEO of a regional nonprofit organization. It is uncommon for me to post a video from 5 years ago, just before days before the pandemic, of me dancing on a jumbotron, with the fun interaction and the way I went about it. But the idea was to entice people, the love for the game of basketball, and to encourage people to be a part of the fun festivities that we all get to enjoy at a sporting event. And so that, again, is uncommon. I did get lots of feedback from mainly from family members, to say, it is not normal, or it's uncommon, or it's doesn't look appropriate to do that. And for me, it is okay, as long as people know your true intentions. Not everybody will, and I get that. And I bet 99% of the people won't do what I just did back in December. But I don't mind, because that's who I am. That is the kind of person. And so I am. And then it's okay to be uncommon. It's okay to be different. It is okay, but with the knowing that it's okay to do it in moderation. So, meaning I don't do this every so often, but more so as a way to talk about, the work that I do. The other one is uncomfortable. And uncomfortable, I'll give you a prime example. It's kind of lean in toward lessons learned, of my, almost 15 years of my career. And I'm still a young man. And one of those things is, the process of growth. How do you transition from growth, from where you are in one point and going from A to D? And what happened was, in my early stage of becoming the CEO, I took things in a dramatic fashion. And oftentimes that dramatic fashion creates a bit of a cluster. And when that goes a bit of a cluster, you make a lot of mistakes. And with those mistakes, what you do, you have to take 3 steps back and figure out a new process and develop a structure. And so being uncomfortable, admitting to your wrongs, and developing new parameters and structure to get you back to where you were, in the beginning, and then and do the process the right way. It is hard, to admit. It is hard to accept failures, but through that process, it is very uncomfortable. It is unsettling, is another good word, to go through, but it is one other example. And then another thing about unstoppable, I mentioned about events. Last year, I attended well over 1,000 business meetings and about well over 300 in-person virtual events.
Wow,
That's a lot.
that's a
It is a
lot.
lot for one individual.
Yes.
And so, how do you manage that? And what do you do to do control? And that's why I always say, take care of your mental health and overall well being. So, being unstoppable, means go, 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 go. But sometimes that gives you a deep self reflection that you need to take 3 steps back and say, you know what, take a breather for a second. And then you can go, go, go. Because I'm constantly reminded as a young CEO of a large growing organization in North Texas is that there's only one Dylan and only one Dylan in this work. What happens if you're not around? What does that look like? And that helped me realize I need to take 3 steps back. And so that is just one prime example for each onwards.
I really appreciate you sharing that because when you're sort of a solo person running such a growing and important organization as yours, and yes, you do have other strategic partnerships that you collaborate with in order to get your programs, your messaging, and mission out there. And I think that's important as a CEO. And I appreciate you sharing that because sometimes we don't take the step back and reevaluate or assess was that a good idea? Was that not a good idea? And I also really appreciated how you even talked about with your family, part of what you're doing is to bring attention and important attention to the work that you're doing that normally gets looked over or looked at that we don't have the money to be able to take care of these individuals. If that's in the workplace, sporting events, whatever the case may be, it may be done to the minimalistic as we can possibly get by with. So I'm looking forward to us having kind of going down that process. But I really appreciate you sharing that. And I want to use this platform for you to really talk about kind of your journey and how you started North Texas Disability Chamber and the
Yeah,
important work that you're
this
doing.
yeah, the work that we're doing, for those that don't know, the North Texas Disability Chamber is there are 6 disability chambers in the United States.
Hmm.
And of the 6, there are only 5 of them that operate as a 501c3. We're actually one of the 501c3 nonprofit organizations. And but we're also the only one in the country that focus strictly on community education. So that is housing, healthcare, transportation. Kind of like what Alison mentioned of what my mission in life is to improve the quality of life. And so that's essentially what we're trying to focus on is what does that quality of life look like for people with disabilities, their families, caregivers, allies, advocates, you name it. And so, knowing all of that, when I started initially, I was in the advocacy journey, served on the governor's committee on disabilities, focused on 10 different policy issue areas, including quality of life, healthcare. The big 3 is basically employment, healthcare, and transportation. Um, then the other components got into being a founding board member for the Disability Chamber of Commerce in the Rio Grande Valley. And they were strictly focused on economic and workforce development. And understanding what they were doing, I realized, sure, there's something in North Texas. Soon to find out there wasn't. And so I renamed an existing organization and to the North Texas Disability Chamber in 2020. We got a late start around 2022-ish, 2023, and then um, and eventually it's grown ever since, Alison. But I will say the biggest pillar of what we do is strategic partnerships. We partner with businesses, nonprofits, governments, anybody that would want to do this work alongside with us, not at us or for us, but with us. There's a key word there, with, because we cannot do this work alone, and we cannot sit in our bubbles in our own silos doing this work. And so we believe in collaboration. We believe in a sense of belonging and community. We know that our community needs competence going forward, whether it's knowledge, resources, experiences, you name it. We also believe in the importance of equity, whether it's legislative equity, meaning policies that are in support and in favor of our community, as well as organizational equity and really emphasizing policies and procedures and guidelines and practices or best practices specifically within organizations. And then lastly, the big piece is inclusion, which also falls into accessibility. And that purpose is to ensure that people with disabilities are invited, have a seat at the table, and lastly, has a voice and or vote. And so that is something that we want to make sure our work is doing that initiative, and we're doing just that because of our uh, massive growth that we've had in the last 3 years. This is year 4. So
Well, Dylan, you have received a just notable recognition for your what you're doing and your leadership. How would you describe yourself? Because when I was very excited to talk with you, and reading up about you, and I don't like to do too much because then I don't like to know too much about someone's amazing story before we get on my podcast like this. How would you describe your unconventional leadership? What is it about you that you and your leadership can get people to listen to you and want to partner with you and to really fight for what is so needed?
it's a culmination of different things. I think over the last 14 years, I think it all started with how I started this career in this journey, was learning, continuously learning about what are the gaps, what are the struggles, the issues that our community constantly face. And a lot of that came from personal experiences.
Mm.
But one of the things that I also realized is I'm a natural visual learner. I observe the room, I see things, I read between the lines. I often have a great way of sense of reading people's facial expressions, and that's part of it because I'm deaf and hard of hearing. So I
Mhm.
have a way of connecting and communicating with people. But I think also another thing is it is not, and again, it's uncommon for someone of my caliber to be put in this position. And I say be put in this position. I voluntarily put myself in this position. I didn't necessarily choose it. I basically put myself in the position and took command. Um, and um, and there are great leaders in our community across the country and in
Mhm.
parts of the globe. But in Texas, knowing how different we are from other places in America and what we're doing and so forth, in a lot of ways we're behind our work compared to other states in this line of disability rights or education, accessibility, inclusion, you name it. But knowing all of that, learning and education and being developing new skills, but also relationships. That is crucial for anyone's success, especially in this day and age. We need to be master communicators, master in networking, master in
Mhm.
relationships, because that is key. I have many relations that we necessarily haven't developed yet, meaning we're not in collaboration mode yet. But once they start seeing the work that we're doing and at the time that they're ready, with the door has always been open. So when they come, we got something ready for them and brewing and so forth. So all of this to say is that it is a culmination of many different actions and behaviors and drive without even knowing what the future holds.
Sure.
And so I will say that this work, almost, I say 12, 13 years of my career of the 15, I've been doing this charitably, meaning free. And that is not sustainable.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
And unfortunately, today's environment, still people think persons with disabilities or disability in general is charitable. It is not. We're trying to change that perspective and say, look, it is an investment. It is something that we need to support and encourage, but not to see it as freebie and charitable and take all we can get and leave it at that. No.
Dylan, I'm so happy that you said that. That is so unbelievably poignant to me because I think when you see nonprofits, um, uh, you don't necessarily get to see the behind the scenes work unless maybe you're invited to a gala or some other event where you're asking for donations and charitable donations and things of that nature. But there's extreme hard work and meetings that are happening behind the scenes to be able to do exactly what it is you just mentioned. That
Yeah.
was really powerful, Dylan. Thank you so much.
Well, and I'll just make another point.
Please.
Last year, even though I was in the organization for 6 months as CEO, and before that, I was donating 100 hours of my time for free. My salary, I don't mind sharing this because I think it's important. And in today's day and about living wage and housing and affordability and everything, and let alone I'm a young man still. Um, I made 24,000 before taxes.
Wow.
Think about that. Do you think the average citizen would take that? Hell no. Sorry, my language.
Absolutely not.
Hell
No,
no. And
no, hell
so
no.
I'm in a position that I have internal resources, meaning family and other resources, that allows me to do that. But in today's world, we don't have that in society. And so this work is often appreciative. It often doesn't equate to success in personal success or a livable wage or a livable setting. Obviously, we're making strides to improve that. Our organization is doing just that. But it's an investment. And it's something that I always told my board members before accepting the role, coming from board chair, stepping down and becoming CEO as the founder of this organization is it's an investment. And if we don't reach certain targets by the time I get my doctorate, I'm going to have to make some difficult decisions.
Sure.
And because, I'm willing to go on this journey, I'm willing to take the risk. Kind of like every lawyer, there's a lot of risk associated with this. Yes, absolutely. But I tell people this because it is so important to know that, you know, we're not just doing this for the love of it. We're doing it because we believe it, we care, we know it works. But sometimes you have to um, value your current situation, your current stability and sustainability, and whether this work can continue. And there's a lot of hard decisions that go along with that. And I guarantee that, but here's the thing, people who are passionate, who are driven, who are entrepreneurs or serial entrepreneurs do this every single day. And I've learned that at a young age, at 20, 21 years old, realizing as an entrepreneur, you're going to have those up and hill roller coaster moments. And when you have those roller coaster moments, there's going to be some great days and there's going to be some stressful anxiety days that you just don't know how to maneuver or how to handle or pivot.
You know what, Dylan? This is exactly why I wanted to do this podcast. And I had people asking me to do a podcast about 3 years ago, and I was not really sure about doing it. For one, I love talking to people, so that was an easy thing. But two, I really wanted to see what sort of meaning I could bring out into the world that would want people to listen and also be inspired and motivated by. And just exactly what you talked about is exactly why I wanted to have you on. I didn't know fully that story, and that is amazing. I have had other people on the podcast where money isn't an issue. However, trying to get their message, their product, their company out, they go very through similar things. Uh, I've also had guests on this podcast where they didn't know where their last $100 was going to come from, but they were so passionate about what it is that they want to offer to the world. And having this platform to show that on all levels, no matter if you're a CEO and have responsibility of billions of dollars, that's just as easily to be stressful as someone who is just trying to keep their company afloat. So I am so thankful and very grateful for you being very vulnerable and having that level of discussion with me, because I think it's very important for other people to hear that. And that's not to say, oh, give up. You don't want to give up. And that's why your mission is so important and the community that you want to continually serve. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and this is also very true for almost every profession. I mean, Allison, earlier this week, I went to the state capitol in Austin, Texas, to advocate for teacher pay raises and increasing public school funding because it currently doesn't meet the current inflation rates based on their basic student allotment per student funding metrics. And so I share that with you is that it's not just me going through that.
Of course.
It's many others. And, pay today in today's environment um, is very important. And so um, part of those experiences, helps me realize why, you know, it's okay to, in a way, be selfish, but reality is stick with what you're doing as long as you're growing and building the opportunities are endless and they'll just come. Let time will only tell. And so I'm excited about where our organization is going, what the work that is doing. But the journey to get here was not easy and it's still not easy, but I genuinely love the work that we're doing. It gives me the flexibility, it gives me the freedom to be creative and innovative, all of those things that has its perks. And so I think that's where I want to really focus on is, you know, there are sacrifices, there are some successes, but sometimes when you see on paper may not always equate in real life.
Sure. And that's an excellent point to bring up. Dylan, I wanted to ask you with the work that you and others around you are doing, is there a story that you can share? Because when you talk about advocacy and trying to get people's buy-in and trying to show that there is equity in making an investment, uh, how one, do you balance that? And two, do you have a story that you're able to share where that maybe didn't go as well and where you felt like you needed to reshift to get buy-in?
Yeah, advocacy in general, it all depends on what the end goal is mine. For my end goal, I think universal for most things, meaning apply it to everyday practice to improve the quality of life. That's just the way I think about it. But sometimes, for some, it takes the very beginning steps to start it, and it may not get there today or tomorrow or a year from now, but maybe in 10 years. So, a good prime example of a story is when I was working as an advocate to support and improve how we support and engage accessibility within local governments.
Mm.
And I met with a new city manager several years ago, and we had those difficult conversations during the pandemic on a virtual call, and we didn't see eye to eye. We saw different perspectives, different outlooks, but sometimes repetition, continuously reminding people, educating them, although it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and sometimes you don't know if it's going anywhere, um, but it does. It
Dylan, can I
eventually
ask
does.
you a
Yeah,
question about that? In
yeah.
your mind, sometimes the hair on the back of my neck goes up when I hear about educating, that we have to educate people to sometimes do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I hear that in my own group with the LGBTQ, like we're educating people that we deserve the same rights. Like it just infuriates me sometimes. Of why am I educating you on something that if you have it, I should have it as well? How what in your mind when you're saying educate, what does that look like in your world?
So what did that entail? Well, I'll give you a prime example. When we
Thank you.
talk about, LGBTQIA plus community,
Hmm.
one of the things I think about is, well, first off, we're all working in our own silos, focused on our own specific needs.
Right.
Why are we not just doing this work together?
Thank you. that's
Okay.
that's my biggest thing. I have
Yeah.
been a huge advocate of that. Thank you for bringing that up.
So, and that's what I'm challenging other organizations here in North Texas is, guys, do I need to build a coalition so that we can meet quarterly and figure out ways that we're not duplicating efforts and not doing policies just for our own community, but
Yes.
broadening that
Yes.
definition of what that looks like and how it benefits people?
Yes.
Then I'll do it. But here's the thing, reason for people that are so focused on their own silos is that that's where they're comfortable. Or
Yes.
not uncomfortable. When we get uncomfortable, we worry about, oh, more work, more time. Am I getting paid for this? A lot of these different logistics. I'm saying, look, do you want the maximum result or do you want incremental results?
Excellent
I
point.
want maximum results. And by
Excellent
doing
point.
that is let's hit it head on. And by head on, we need to focus on bringing people together from different stakeholders and combine the definition of what um, policies that we want to advocate together. So there's a good prime example of or organization group that does lobbying efforts to support the LGBTQIA community. It's all great. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Where's the racial equity? Where's the gender equity? Where's the disability equity? Why are we not included in it? You want us to help support it, but why support it if we're not included in that broadening definition? Maybe that's probably why is that we're so focused on our silos that we're not organized, we're not coordinated in our efforts, and therefore we're not getting the results that we all want. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to, in a way, be disruptive. And but again, I think Dr. Schmidt, there's the challenge here is we need to educate, but we need to educate by doing it together.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, and Dylan, any way that I can support in that, because I have served on boards, and I have always felt the same way when everyone is fighting uh, for better living, having equal rights, and I just think with us all coming together, educating all together and being, I think that would just bring so much, it would just be more powerful in that way. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Another topic that I think fits very well with this, and you and I talked very briefly about this. We're talking about our new administration that is trying to quiet DEI, and I think it's and we're just going to throw in that term because that's how it's being represented. But to me, I think they're trying to quiet uh, a lot of things. And how do you find the challenge now with our new administration? I'm in Dallas, not too far away from where you are, so we know collectively our struggles that we face here in Texas. How do you think that is going to affect your mission and your work? And what do you feel you as a leader uh, wants and needs to do?
Very good question. Well, first and foremost, there's going to be setbacks, no doubt. Um, but our mission will have to continue forward. We're going to stay firm on our values. We're going to stay firm on why this organization was started in the first place. And yes, I'm a young white man who happens to be a person with disabilities leading an organization. But I also want to share that DEI is the reason we started this organization in the first
Mhm.
place. So our values will never change as long as I'm involved in this organization. But most importantly, I think, Allison, is we have to go back to the basics. And the basics is, we got so comfortable and all this. Right now, we're experiencing uncomfortable times. We're experiencing uncommon things. And so, in a lot of ways, we got to be unstoppable and keep pushing forward. And so, knowing all of those things, way I see going forward is I'm going to continue to observe the next several months to see how this current administration is making the changes that they wants to make and what their vision is. But at the same time, as we're going to continue to do our work, we're going to make adjustments, we're going to make adaptations along the way. Um, but we're going to continue to communicate and be boots on the ground and be a regional voice for this community. Um, you know, there are some fears in some communities. There are some excitement in others, but I will say this: it's okay to get back to our basics. Imagine a world what is like 20 years ago
Mhm.
and what it is now. So sometimes it's okay to do a reflection and figure out what we did in 20 years ago could actually help us today. And I was probably still in high school around that time, so I wasn't really involved in this work. But I will say is that it is okay to take a deep reflection, make adjustments, and I think it's going to make it better. It could make us better, but it's how we move about, it's how we lead, it's how we communicate and educate. Education is not going away. Just going to say that. The
It will not.
continuous of education and awareness will never go away. Everybody has to be mindful of that. But with this work, you're going to have to take steps back. Yes, it is not progress, but here's the thing: progress over perfection. We had things perfect for some, and others we had more work to do. But reality is progress over perfection. What I mean by that is one day there's a lot of momentum, the next day there's a lot of step backwards. That's okay. That's progress. And so progress can be seen different things. And I got to give a shout out to Meryl K. Evans for helping us understand the language of progress over perfection.
Wow. Can you share what was said in regards to that?
Well, it's simply basically, Meryl mentioned in the digital accessibility arena or accessibility arena that as we devote our talent, time, treasures, or resources to the work of accessibility, it varies each day. And each day, as long as we put our minds and our hearts into this work, that is progress. And as you build momentum around that, is progress. And momentum can be seen in different days. One day you could do 20%, and the next day you do 90%, and the next day it goes to 5%. It is okay. That's progress. And because we lived oftentimes in a perfected world, a perfect world, which is not necessarily true. And so the idea is to think from a progress mindset when you're doing this kind of work.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because,
Yes.
there are times in, uh, especially when you're so passionate about the work that you do, it's really easy to get down or to begin to doubt yourself and to question, did I do enough? What could I have done differently? And I really appreciate that message. And I'm sure that's going to resonate too with a lot of the viewers and listeners that 50% that day could have really been okay. And that's or even 20%, because that could have been 20% further that ahead you were than you were before. And to reflect on that instead of kind of getting down on the negative, that 20% could be looked at as like, wow, I was 20% ahead further ahead than I was before. So I think that is beautifully said, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. I think, again, all of that comes with learning and understanding and experiences. And so, but this journey, like I said, is a continuous progress. And as long as you have that positive and growth mindset, nothing's going to stop you.
Dylan, you and I have a passion for sports, and we both love sports. And I wanted to kind of talk with you because I know you're passionate also about the Mavericks and your work and bringing your work into sporting events is something that you're focused on. Do you mind sharing a bit about that and what the journey's been like and how it's been receptive and what you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, it is a true passion of mine. And part of that is because sports is constantly adapting, making changes, whether for the good or for the bad, whatever that might be. But reality is, in my profession, I notice a gap. And that gap is many sports organizations often don't prioritize or make the effective business case to address accessibility. And in fact, I'm actually doing that as part of my dissertation study at University of Southern California. And the reason for that is, working with many of these organizations, they know they're the business case. They just don't have enough data to support it. And so, my hoping is that one day I take this work and do the research and present it and defend it, and soon after, I would encourage sports organizations, hopefully the research supports it, is to one day serve as a chief accessibility officer for a professional sports organization. And that does not necessarily mean just from a physical barrier or from a fan experience or from an athlete experience, but also is internal business operations, and how do we conduct our business processes and procedures. Supplier diversity, that's a big thing that in pro sports organizations and other sports organizations. So having someone lead that role is a multidisciplinary role, and is something that I would encourage sports business organizations to do. And one of those days, if it was either this or that, I would choose the being the chief accessibility officer role because I think it's constantly challenging and something that I don't often see in the world of sports. Maybe for big sporting events. I mean, there are accessibility officers for the World Cup and many other things, but is it an everyday, full time, Monday through Friday in sports organizations? No. And we need to change and broaden that definition and what that role might look like and how it could improve the bottom line and also ROI impacts for an organization like the Mavericks and others.
That's fantastic. Did you ever see the show Wrexham?
No, I have not.
I I would recommend it. What was really great about it is actually two celebrities bought their soccer team. But what was very inspirational, and it's located in the UK, and what was so inspirational about it is that it was very important to them uh, to, in fact, focus on accessibility, and they did hire someone to do the role that you are hoping to do, and it is great. I can't recall if a third season or we're at third season, but it's fantastic and it's very inspirational. And I just think organizations could take, from a sports perspective, could take a play out of their playbook, and I highly recommend it because I think it will certainly drive you to even move forward. That you're on the right path in doing that here in the states, and it is possible to do it.
Yeah, it is possible, and thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely check it out. Um, I think the challenge is, making the business case and with supportive data, because it's not necessarily the business people driving it; it's the owners of these professional sports teams that often have the final say.
Exactly.
After all, it's coming out of their pockets. So it's really uh, something to think about.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you talked about, because I'm really passionate about sports. I'm passionate about the work that your organization and you yourself are doing. We're getting close to our wrap up time, and I like to give my guests kind of the opportunity if they would like to ask me anything, or if there is something that you feel during our podcast you may have left out, or if there's a shout out that you would like to do. I just like to give the guests a moment, and for me to kind of turn over the floor to them.
Well, Alison, I will say this. The motivation that you all have received from this podcast, I hope it gives you to do some sort of action. Here's the thing: I've done many speaking engagements,
Mhm.
done many one on ones, many podcasts, many interviews. And the number one thing I often hear from people is, well, Dylan, you gave me a lot of motivation, got me excited, etc. But I tell them, what did you do after leaving or listening to a podcast? What did you do within the next week? Nothing. Well, guess what? You wasted time.
Exactly.
And by doing that is take that motivation and allow that to be your driving force. The actions you take, the results that you produce within the first week is so crucial. So my sort of tip and motivation for everyone is what you learned today, the tips that I provided you. It may or may not work for everyone, but one thing I would encourage you to do is do something different based on the inspiration or the motivation that you received on this podcast, and do so within 1 week from listening to this episode.
Dylan, I really appreciate you saying that. And I appreciate a compliment that you gave to me before we did this podcast. And you are on a lot of podcasts, you do a ton of speaking engagements. And one of the compliments that you gave to me was what I was doing, and the type of guests that I wanted to have on my podcast. And I take that very seriously. And that's why I'm very thrilled that I got to have you, because with each of the guests that I have, I don't want it just to motivate. I want this to be, hey, I'm having people, amazingly excellent people, who are willing to share such vulnerable stories and to get real, and they're sharing themselves. And so this is a podcast, a call to action.
Yeah.
Do good work out there. And so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah,
Well,
no, again, it's all about action. Our behaviors and attitudes help drive actions. And so, again, I encourage people to not sit by, don't sleep on it. You can, but don't sleep on it. Keep going, keep pushing forward. One last thing I will say is if you have something on your mind, go find a pen, wake up from your bed and start typing because that's essentially what I do every day. And so that's what keeps me going. And I hope everybody finds that same encouragement.
that's great. Thank you, Dylan. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Unconversations. I am your host, Dr. Alison Schmidt. Dylan, thank you so much again for all your time and your insights. And I just want to encourage everyone out there to keep challenging the status quo and striving for excellence in all you do. Dylan, thank you so much. I am grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for streaming the Young Conversations podcast, the space where unconventional excellence takes center stage and spotlights global visionaries who don't just follow the rules, they reinvent them. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. If you felt the onward effect, don't just scroll, unleash your support. Unsubscribe from silence. Hit that follow, drop a like, and leave a comment to keep the Young Conversations going and amplifying the voices that are shaping the future. Looking for our podcast? Don't worry, it's all in the show's description. Tune in to the next episode of Unconversations where we unmute the truth and uncover the unexpected.